Talking to Ghost. I will try to recall the experience as best as I can, but it was incredibly powerful. I only wish words did it justice. There was so much more than can possibly be said here. This was amazing, horrible, scary, fascinating, annoying, uncomfortable, painful, and surreal, all at once. This happened a few years ago. It is now January 2015, but I believe it is worth mentioning. I had been discouraged from recording the experience at the time by the fact that all the careful notes I had been taking during the experience turned out to be nothing but illegible scribbles, symbols, and crumpled notebook paper when I examined them the next day. I had previously been given 150 seeds by a friend who mistook them for morning glory seeds. This mistake could have been dangerous, but in the end I was shown the plant and properly identified it. I chose to take some seed pods home with me. With a little bit of research online, and with the seeds themselves, I ended up finding that I believed to be a dose that would take me far, but wouldn't put me in the hospital or worse. Datura's potency varies 5 to 1, so I now always start with a very, very low dose and work up. Date 2012. Gender male. Weight 52 kilograms or 115 pounds. Age 21. Dose 450 Datura seeds. Goal, meditative supplement. Timeline, unknown. Mind frame / set, curious, anxious, slightly depressed. Environment / setting, night, a quiet house in the middle of a large desert, few neighbors, close family and home, and aware of experiment. No TV or music, phones off. Content, 450 individually counted and finely ground seeds into tea. Preparation, I prepared 450 individually counted and finely ground seeds into a coffee filter and tied a string around it so it resembled a closed tea bag. I dipped it in a pot of warm water for approximately 24 hours and agitated it every few hours. I discarded the seed bag and took the portion as the sun fell under the moon. This seemed appropriate because the plant had earned the nickname Moonflower. My brother came up for the weekend and wanted to try the experiment with me in the last minute. He was to be my sitter anyway, so I gave the okay. My brother was not made tea, but instead yogurt, so we can get on with the experience. For my brother, I prepared 150 finely ground seeds and sprinkled them into yogurt mix. I had been fasting all day for the experiment. I do not know what he had to eat, but he weighed around 135 at the time, I believe. It might have been better for him to start at 50 to 100, but I gave him 150 because he insisted he wanted to really feel it. Experience. I began feeling the effects of this potion before I was done drinking it. Granted, it took me about 15 minutes to finish because it tasted so foul, but most potions for the mind taste bad, I find. It's almost a rite of passage in my eyes. Still, this kicked in notably fast when compared to my other Datura experiences. My brother had a much easier time downing his yogurt. I find, even with a scientific and rational mind, I enjoy the ritualistic aspect of these experiences, so I tried to be as serious about it as I could. This was an exploration of the mind, not recreational intoxication. About 15 to 20 minutes after downing the potion, I was already feeling very drunk and distended from my body. I hadn't even stood from my original seat. I was just battling nausea. I had been fighting an incredible urge to purge since the first sip, and considering the sheer intensity of the confusion I was facing, I was abandoning the idea that I was going to peacefully meditate myself into another point of thought. I didn't even make it to the bathroom. I purged right back into the pot I had prepared my brew in, before I even got a chance to stand up. I might be paranoid, but I think this may have saved my life. I faded out of memorable consciousness after stumbling to the bathroom. Time doesn't make any sense. The notes I am writing don't seem to want to form together coherently. I am very confused and uncomfortable. My stomach doesn't hurt anymore, which makes it easier to think clearly, but I still feel very drunk, and my skin feels incredibly sharp. I'm shaking, and I don't know why. It hurts to touch anything that's not completely smooth or soft. Touching anything with my hands or arms sends sharp pins and lightning bolts up my nerves. I think my throat is swelling up, and I am compulsively drinking water to ensure it doesn't close. I am swallowing nothing constantly, just to ensure I can still swallow. Trying to breathe through my nose is easier. My throat might just be numb and not swollen, but I can't tell. I fade out again. I wake up sitting in the dark, apologizing to my blanket for being so intoxicated. I don't know how I got here. I am more self-aware now, but cannot think clearly, as I seem to genuinely think my blanket is my ex-girlfriend, who had deflated into a pile of self-aware skin and muscle due to the disappointment she felt. She had always disapproved of my studies and claimed I was always just trying to get high. She lays there crumpled on my bed and staring at me disapprovingly with a morose look on her face. I hold her for a while and apologize more. I fade out. I decided to try and take a shower. I believe this was irresponsible and dangerous. It should have been obvious to me because the room was spinning, and I found it very difficult to walk, or function at all for that matter. My legs just give out underneath me, and I fall in the hallway, over and over, stumbling to find my placement. I fade out on my knees, staring at the carpet. This fade seemed to happen quite a bit. I was slipping in and out of consciousness. With Datura, I still seem to function while I'm out, as opposed to the more familiar nod associated with opiates. With an opiate, I wake up right where I faded out, but with Datura, I wake up in a room I don't remember walking into, in the middle of doing things, or talking to people in contexts that don't make any sense, similar to a drunken psychosis. I wake up in mid-sentence, realizing I was talking to no one, but aware I had been talking for at least 5 minutes prior. I wonder who I must have been talking to. Could it have been my brother? I then realize I am naked. Shortly after, I realize I'm in the shower with water running down my face. I've been talking to no one. This was very interesting to me. I wondered what could have possibly caused me to slip in and out of the worlds like this, with no real recollection of what I had been doing prior, or at least why I was doing it. I fade out again and wake up standing in the hall with a sober brother of mine, third brother, asking me a question. I don't remember what I said or what the question was, but he told me, the next day, that I answered him coherently, even though the answer had nothing to do with the question. While I was in the shower, the brother that had joined me on my adventure had woken my grandmother out of her sleep. It was about 2 a.m. to inform her the flower truck was outside. Again, we live in the middle of nowhere. No flower truck, no neighbors, and it's not even daytime. I don't believe he saw a flower truck, but I do think he genuinely believed it was there when he told her. I wake up again in mid-sentence. I am in my room and having a conversation with some Cat in the Hat slippers that I have apparently placed on my bed, so the faces face me. I guess so they could pay attention. I reached over to use my laptop to play some music and nothing was there. I didn't have a laptop. Why did I think one was there? I am still confused. My skin tingles painfully and my throat is still sore and closed at this point. This fade in, fade out theme happened many more times, and every time I woke up talking to an inanimate object or someone that wasn't there. Sometimes still genuinely believing the clock could understand what I was saying. This was a very mind-oriented experience, not classically psychedelic at all. The visuals are light but unique. Jag changes in my environment take place throughout the trip when the room isn't spinning. Corners and walls bend and shake quickly, then go back to normal, like something out of a horror movie. When the director flashes something weird on the screen for a few frames and it goes away as fast as it arrived, is the closest thing I can compare to it. Parts of a chair shaking against its own structure in a way that it should break but doesn't, for example. Probably an even better analogy would be to compare it to a fast glitching in a 3D video game model. I've seen nothing like it in other entheogens. I finally have to give in to the drowsiness that had been chasing me the entire night. I go to bed shaking because I feel cold, but I wasn't. Everything I touch still feels like razors cutting into my skin, and I will continue drinking water every 3 minutes throughout the night while I am awake. I hear, while trying to lay in bed, auditory hallucinations that sound ominous and far away. Nothing to understand, really. It seems like old trees moaning and whining in the distance, maybe as a way of communicating to each other. The language of trees, I think, and I slip off to sleep easily enough. I wake up with a hangover the next day. I would never do this again, for many reasons. I'm glad, however, that I was able to experience it. I wish I could remember more of it. Even reading this wall of text, it doesn't seem to properly convey to you the experience. The weird almond taste in my mouth, the strange noises and thoughts that didn't seem to be my own, etc. I believe this was an irresponsible dose, and I had not understood the dangers of going so far in. I might just be paranoid, but I didn't know the seeds could be as toxic as they can be during the time of ingestion, or I would have not gone in so deep. It was poor research on my part. I would recommend the experience itself, but I ultimately would never recommend the dosage I took. With responsibility and caution, it can be quite the experience, but I wouldn't expect it to be fun.